Most men will die with a life they never truly chose. Not because they lacked strength, not because the world conspired against them, but because no one, not their father, not their teachers, not the very system that shaped them, ever had the courage to hand them the raw, unfiltered truth about power. They were given comfort instead of clarity, applause instead of armor, and so they moved through life half awake, constantly questioning why nothing ever felt like it truly belonged to them. That changes today. What you're about to hear is not motivation. There are no empty promises here, no hollow affirmations. What I'm about to give you is a cold, calculated, and ruthless blueprint forged from one of the darkest and most powerful philosophies ever conceived. This is for the man who is completely and irreversibly done with being average. Machiavelli did not write for the comfortable man. He wrote for the man bold enough to see reality as it is, stripped of illusion, stripped of sentiment, and still choose to rise. That man becomes dangerous. That man becomes untouchable. Drop "I control my fate" in the comments. Let's see who's truly ready. The first mastery: master your mind before anything else, before money, before people. Before the game of power itself, you must master the space between your ears. Because here is the truth most men spend their entire lives avoiding. Your mind, when left unchecked, is not your greatest ally. It is your greatest enemy. It whispers excuses at 6 a.m. when the alarm rings. It manufactures fear the moment opportunity appears. It disguises cowardice as caution and labels it wisdom. And if you never learn to govern it, truly govern it with discipline, it will quietly govern you for the rest of your life. Machiavelli understood something modern men have forgotten. A ruler who cannot control his impulses, his emotions, his internal chaos, cannot control anything outside himself. You cannot build an empire on emotional reactions. You cannot demand respect from others when you cannot demand it from yourself. The man who explodes in anger when provoked is already defeated. The man who breaks under pressure was never truly standing. Mastery of the mind is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming immovable. This is where Stoicism and Machiavellian thinking align perfectly. The Stoics taught that you cannot control the world, only your response to it. Machiavelli taught that the man who controls his response controls the result. Combine those two truths, and you create something dangerous. A man who cannot be shaken, cannot be manipulated, and cannot be stopped. Every great conqueror in history, every man who bent reality to his will, began in the same place, a mind forged in silence, sharpened in solitude, hardened against weakness. So understand this clearly: your mind is either your weapon or your prison. There is no middle ground. Choose carefully. Everything else depends on it. The second mastery: master your image. The next thing every man must understand is something the naive dismiss as shallow and the powerful recognize as essential: your image. Not vanity, not surface-level aesthetics, not just the clothes you wear or the car you drive, something far deeper, something strategic, the deliberate construction of how the world perceives you. Because in the game of power, perception is not just reality. Perception is a weapon. Machiavelli said it with precision. It is not enough to be powerful. You must appear powerful. The world does not respond to what you are internally. It responds to what it sees, what it feels, and what it assumes about you within seconds of your presence. Men who ignore this truth spend their lives underestimated and overlooked. Not because they lacked ability, but because they failed to present that ability in a way the world could recognize. Talent without image is like a closed book, valuable but unread and irrelevant. This is where dark psychology becomes your advantage. Every interaction is a stage. Every room is an audience. And the man who understands this, who walks in with controlled body language, steady eye contact, measured calm, and an aura that silently communicates, "I need nothing from you," commands attention without asking for it. He earns respect without chasing it. He makes others seek his approval instead of the other way around. That is a total inversion of social power. Guard your image like a fortress. Shape it with intention. Protect it aggressively. Never let the world see your doubt, your desperation, or your need. Because the moment they see your need, they control you. The world bows to the man it cannot fully read. Become that man. Become the mystery. Become untouchable. The third mastery: master your circle. The third thing every man must control is one of the most painful yet transformative decisions of his life: his circle. The people he allows close, the voices he listens to, the energy he tolerates. Here is a truth most men learn too late. You are not just influenced by those around you, you are shaped by them, slowly, silently, permanently. And if you surround yourself with men who have settled for mediocrity, you will eventually do the same without even realizing it. Machiavelli was ruthless on this point. A man is judged by the quality of those around him. A weak circle is not bad luck. It is poor judgment. Every man chooses, consciously or not, the level of people he allows into his life. And that choice will either elevate him or keep him stuck below his potential. There is no neutrality here. Every person in your life is either adding to your power or subtracting from it, either sharpening you or dulling you, either pulling you forward or dragging you back. And the hardest truth is this: the people draining you are rarely strangers. They are friends who resent your growth and disguise it as concern. Family members who call your ambition arrogance because it reminds them of their own stagnation. People who celebrate your failures too quickly and go silent when you succeed. These people are not your tribe. They are your ceiling. And a man who refuses to remove his ceiling will never rise. The Machiavellian approach is not cruelty. It is clarity. The ability to look at every relationship with honesty and ask one question: does this person move me closer to or further from the man I'm becoming? If the answer is unclear, you already know the truth. Act on it, not emotionally, not dramatically, but with quiet decisiveness. Your time, your energy, and your peace are your most valuable assets. Build your circle like an empire, with standards, with intention, without apology. Surround yourself with men who challenge you, sharpen you, and refuse to let you shrink, because iron sharpens iron, and a man surrounded by iron becomes unbreakable. Audit your circle today. Not tomorrow, today. Your future depends on it more than you realize. The fourth mastery: master your emotions. The fourth thing every man must conquer is the one force that has destroyed more potential than any external enemy: his emotions. Not because emotions are weakness, but because uncontrolled emotions make a man predictable. And a predictable man is a controllable man. Machiavelli understood human nature deeply. He saw men as they truly are: reactive, impulsive, driven by fear and desire, capable of brilliance in one moment and self-destruction in the next. And he realized that the man who learns to regulate these forces, who can feel without being consumed, care without losing control, desire without desperation, that man holds a level of power the world cannot easily counter. You cannot manipulate a man who has mastered his triggers. You cannot provoke a man who has made peace with his pain. You cannot destabilize a man whose identity is built beyond approval or circumstance. Here is the harsh truth: uncontrolled emotion is not private, it is visible. Every time you lose your temper, you reveal your weaknesses. Every time you act from desperation, you expose your insecurity. Every time you react defensively, you confirm your vulnerability. Uncontrolled emotion is exposure, and exposure in the game of power is defeat. True emotional mastery is not suppression. Suppression is just delayed weakness. Real mastery is transformation, turning anger into focus, rejection into independence, pain into fuel. Every great man in history felt pain. The difference is they used it. Stoicism teaches that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies your power. Most men collapse that space. They react instantly. But the Machiavellian man expands it. He observes, calculates, and then decides, not from emotion, but from intention. Master your emotions and you control the room. Control the room and you control outcomes. Do it consistently and you stop reacting to life. You start designing it. That is power in its purest form. Drop "I transmute pain into power" in the comments. Mean it, because from this moment on, nothing breaks you, everything builds you. The fifth mastery: master your resources. The fifth thing every man must dominate is the one subject the world both glorifies and uses against him: resources. Money, capital, leverage. Call it whatever you want, but understand this clearly. In this world, resources are not just comfort or convenience. They are not about greed or materialism. Resources are freedom. Resources are options. Resources are the tangible, real-world expression of power. And the man who refuses to master them, who looks down on wealth or never builds the discipline to create and protect it, will spend his entire life asking for permission. Permission to live where he wants, permission to walk away from what no longer serves him, permission to protect the people he cares about. And a man who needs permission is not free. he is controlled. Machiavelli was never sentimental about this. He understood that idealism without resources is nothing more than poverty dressed up as philosophy. He wrote that a ruler who cannot fund his own power will always be dependent on those who can, and that dependence, whether financial or otherwise, is one of the most invisible and suffocating forms of captivity, because chains made of gold are still chains, and a man who lives off another man's generosity will always bend his principles before he sacrifices his comfort. This is not pessimism, this is reality, stripped down for the man who has the courage to face it directly. Here is what dark psychology exposes about money that most people will never admit. Wealth is not just a number, it is a signal. It is a frequency the world reacts to before you even speak. A man who has built real resources carries himself differently, speaks with certainty, and makes decisions without hesitation. Not because money changed who he is, but because financial stability removed the desperation that once distorted him. Desperation is the most dangerous force in a man's decision-making. It makes him settle for less in relationships. It makes him tolerate disrespect in his work. It keeps him stuck in environments that slowly suffocate his potential. Remove desperation, build resources, and watch how your entire life shifts in every dimension. But mastering resources is not just about earning. Any man can earn. It is about creating systems that generate, protect, multiply, and sustain wealth even when you are not actively working. It is about understanding leverage, financial, intellectual, and social, and using it with the precision of someone always thinking several moves ahead. The Machiavellian man does not trade time for money forever. He exchanges time for assets, for skills, for networks, for knowledge that compounds over time. He builds quietly. He moves with intention. He does not reveal what he is building until it is already complete, because the man who announces his empire too early invites interference, competition, and sabotage from those who once stood beside him. Protect your resources with the same intensity you would protect your life, because in today's world, they are inseparable. A man without resources has no leverage. A man without leverage has no options. And a man without options is not living. He is surviving inside a cage so comfortable he mistakes it for security. Build a foundation that makes you answerable to no one. Invest in skills that cannot be taken from you. Create income streams that continue whether you are present or not. Remove financial dependence from your life with urgency, because it is a slow poison. And when you reach the point where your resources allow you to walk away from anything that compromises your standards, you will experience freedom in its truest form. Not theoretical freedom, not emotional freedom, real freedom, sovereign, untouchable, answerable only to yourself. That is the fifth mastery, and it is non-negotiable. The sixth mastery, master the art of strategy. The sixth thing every man must develop is the skill that separates those who react from those who rule. Strategy, not planning, strategy. Because planning is what ordinary men do when they hope things will work out. Strategy is what powerful men use when they have already decided the outcome and are now working backward to ensure every step leads there. That difference is everything. It is the line between being shaped by the world and shaping it yourself. And if you've come this far, if something in these words resonates with you, then you already know which side you belong on. Machiavelli devoted his life to understanding strategy, not as theory, but as a tool for survival and dominance in a world that does not care about your intentions. He studied rulers, conquerors, and systems with cold precision and reached a conclusion that most people are too comfortable to accept. The world does not reward the most talented man. It does not reward the hardest worker. It does not reward the most virtuous. It rewards the most strategic, the man who understands timing, who reads situations accurately, who knows when to act and when to remain completely still. This is where dark psychology and strategy merge into something powerful. Because true strategy is not just about your actions. It is about influencing the actions of others. It is about positioning yourself so effectively that others unknowingly move in ways that benefit you. It is about understanding human behavior deeply enough to predict it, to recognize manipulation before it happens, to see fractures in alliances before they become obvious, to identify opportunity where others only see obstacles. Strategy at this level is not just intelligence. It is awareness, pattern recognition, emotional control, and psychological insight working together in real time. A strategic man does not act from emotion. He does not make permanent decisions in temporary situations. He does not destroy connections in anger that he may need in the future. He understands that everything, every relationship, every conflict, every opportunity exists within a larger game. And the man who plays the long game will always outmaneuver the one obsessed with short-term wins. Patience is not weakness. It is a weapon. It is the discipline to wait when everything inside you demands action, because you understand that the right move at the wrong time is still the wrong move. Think in years while others think in days. Move in silence while others seek attention. Build your strategy privately and let your results speak publicly. Study people deeply, not just who they are now, but who they become under pressure, temptation, and insecurity. Because that insight is intelligence, and intelligence is the foundation of every lasting empire. Never walk into a room without understanding the dynamics at play. Never enter a negotiation without knowing what the other side truly needs. Never step into conflict without having multiple exits already mapped. And never reveal the full depth of your thinking. Because the moment people understand how you operate, they begin preparing against you. Your greatest advantage is not your plan. It is that no one sees it coming. The sixth mastery is strategy, and once it becomes the lens through which you see everything, every interaction, every opportunity, every obstacle, you will realize something most men never do. The game was never random. It was never unfair. It was never random. It was simply being played by men who understood the rules, against men who didn't even realize they were part of a game. Now you know. So play accordingly. The seventh mastery. Master your legacy. The final mastery is the one most men never stop long enough to even consider. Not because they aren't capable of thinking about it, but because the world has conditioned them so deeply, so consistently to chase the immediate, the next paycheck, the next pleasure, the next validation, the next distraction, that the idea of legacy has quietly been erased from modern masculinity. And that erasure was not an accident. Because a man who thinks about legacy begins to think about meaning. A man who thinks about meaning develops standards, and a man with standards becomes selective, intentional, and impossible to manipulate. And a man who cannot be manipulated is a threat to every system designed to keep him average. So instead, they gave him distractions, they gave him noise, and most men accepted it willingly, never questioning the cost. Understand this clearly. Legacy is not fame. It is not how many people know your name. It is not your follower count, your bank balance, or the size of your house. Legacy comes down to one question. When you are gone, what will be different about the world because you were here? What will your children carry forward that your father never gave you? What new standard will you establish in your bloodline that did not exist before you? What will the men who truly knew you say about how you lived, not at your funeral, where grief softens the truth, but years later in quiet, honest conversations? That is legacy, raw, permanent, unfiltered. Machiavelli understood that every truly powerful man is building something beyond himself. He observed that the rulers who endured, whose influence outlived them, whose decisions shaped generations they would never meet, were the ones who acted with the long term in mind. They did not make decisions based on what felt good in the moment, but on what would withstand the judgment of time. They understood that a man's life is not measured in years, it is measured in impact, and impact is never accidental. It is designed by a man who has decided with clarity what he stands for, what he is building, and what he will never compromise, no matter the pressure. This is where Machiavellian thinking evolves beyond strategy and becomes philosophy. Because at its core, power was never just about control, it was about authorship. The highest form of the Machiavellian man is not one who controls others, but one who has taken full ownership of his own life. He writes his own rules, he sets his own standards, he chooses his direction with deliberate intention behind every decision. He does not inherit his life from expectations. He does not stumble into his identity. He forges it, in silence, in discipline, in sacrifice, through long, unglamorous work that no one applauds in the moment, but no one can deny once it's complete. Dark psychology reveals that most men live in reaction. They react to their past, to their trauma, to the opinions of people who have never built anything meaningful. They spend their lives being shaped by forces outside themselves, then wonder in those quiet moments, late at night, when everything is silent, why their life feels like it belongs to someone else. That feeling is not weakness. It is awareness. It is your deeper self signaling that you are meant for more, that the life you are capable of living is far beyond the one you are currently tolerating, and that gap should push you into immediate, irreversible action. Your legacy does not begin later. It begins now. Not when you have more money, not when the timing feels right, not when fear disappears, because it never fully does. The man who waits to feel ready will wait forever. It starts with a decision. One clear, uncompromising decision that from this moment forward you will live intentionally, you will build with purpose, you will protect your time, your energy, and your standards like a man who understands that his life is limited, that every day spent living someone else's version of your life is a day you will never get back, and that the greatest tragedy is not failure. It is reaching the end and realizing the strongest version of you was never allowed to exist. Give him that permission now. Drop "My legacy starts today" in the comments, not later, right now. Because the man who acts immediately on what resonates is the man who builds something real. And that man, the decisive, intentional, legacy-driven man, is exactly who this channel was built for. The closing, the untouchable man. You've just been given 7 masteries that most men will never encounter in an entire lifetime. Not because the knowledge is hidden, but because most men are not searching for it. They are too comfortable in their confusion, too distracted by noise, too attached to the ordinary to sit in silence and absorb something that could completely change their trajectory. But you did. You stayed. You listened. And that alone says everything about who you are and who you are becoming. Let me leave you with this. The untouchable man is not a myth. He is not a fantasy. He is the natural result of a man who masters his mind, shapes his image, protects his circle, controls his emotions, builds his resources, thinks strategically, and lives with legacy as his foundation. He is the man who stopped asking the world for permission and started building a life so precise, so disciplined, and so aligned with his own standards that the world has no choice but to respond to him on his terms. That man exists. And every word in this video was meant for the version of you capable of becoming him. Machiavelli said it centuries ago, and it still holds true. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But here is the deeper layer. It is better to be so completely, so unapologetically yourself that the world cannot control you through fear or manipulate you through approval. That is true power. That is the man this channel is built to create. This is Machiavellian Galaxy. And if something in these words hit you, if it sharpened you, challenged you, or ignited something that was waiting to rise, then drop "I am untouchable" in the comments right now. Let every man who sees it know this is not a community of followers. This is a community of men who lead themselves first. And if you're not subscribed yet, do it now. Hit like, turn on notifications, because what's coming next will make this look like the beginning. The game has changed. Now go play it differently.